Welcome to WP Constellations, a podcast exploration of the WordPress universe, brought to you by Stellar WP. Welcome to WP Constellations, a Stellar WP exploration of the WordPress universe. Doesn't that sound really cool? Even though I tripped over it a little bit, we do cool stuff here at Stellar WP, and one of those things is getting to talk to really cool people in the community. But first, I would like to introduce my Stellar WP guest host today, Travis Jacobson, who is the VP of Affiliate Marketing. Travis, welcome. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm good, and it's so good to have you on here to talk to our guest with me today, who is Marcus Burnette, who is the community and events marketer at GoDaddy, but also what we're talking about today is the creator and founder of the WP World. Welcome, Marcus.
Hi, Michelle. Thank you to you and Travis both for having me on. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's kind of cool to talk about the WP World when we're talking about the WP universe. So it's like,
Yeah,
it's a little meta in a way, I guess, right? Like,
I'm all about the planetary theme of things. Obviously, the WP world, but I have some other projects that are planetary themed as well. So I'm all about it.
fantastic. Well, we're excited to have you here. But so if people aren't aware yet, I'm thinking it's still a new project, so there might be some people who haven't heard about it yet. Tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do in WordPress, and then we're going to dive into a little bit more about the WP world after that.
Yeah, awesome. As you noted, I work for GoDaddy. I'm in community and events there. What that mostly means is that I have the opportunity to travel to WordCamps, mostly in the US, but I've gotten to go to WordCamp EU the last couple of years as well, and just get to be in person with the community, which is awesome. When I'm not doing that, I host virtual meetups for GoDaddy. It was weekly for a while, and then WordCamps picked up, and so that's slowed down a little bit, but that'll come back in 2024 to some degree. We'll get back to having more virtual events as well, and then just being active in the community on social platforms and different Slack communities and that kind of thing. So that's my day job. I'm also a co-rep of the WordPress photo directory and one of the moderators alongside you, Michelle. And I just love getting to see all the photos that people upload to that. And, that's a global project. So there are pictures from all over the world, and we get to see, pockets that we might not ordinarily get to see and see it from the perspective of people in our community that are uploading those photos. So
Yeah.
I really love doing that. And then, like we hinted at a little bit, number of side projects. One of them is WP AI Universe, which is actually one that I got to talk about a little bit last time I was on WP Constellations. And this time we'll talk a little bit about the WP world.
Awesome.
Awesome. So what is WP World? Tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so the WP World is a WordPress community focused directory aimed at helping people connect with folks in their own areas and around the world. I'm going to talk a little bit about why I started it. I kind of built the framework for the site before the idea for the site even existed. Probably about a year and a half ago, I built a little mini project just because I like to play developer sometimes and wanted to see if I can figure out how to put some pins on a Google map, and wanted the information from those pins to come from, a custom post type in WordPress. I had a feeling that was going to come in handy someday to pull content from a WordPress database and put it on a Google map. And so I did that. I tinkered with it a little bit. I set it aside, didn't think about it again for a little while. And then I live in Orlando, Florida. And one of the things that we have to deal with here on a yearly basis are hurricanes. And so we had a couple of hurricanes the last few years that came through our area, and I wanted to really be able to know what other folks in our community were being affected by the hurricanes so that I could check up on them beforehand, afterwards, see if there's anything they needed, see if they're okay and all that. So I was like, you know what? I have this little thing sitting on the side with Google Maps and some pins. Why don't I put some real data behind it? Let me find some of the folks that are in my area and add them to the map, and that way I can start to build a little bit of a mini directory for myself to see who's who's in this, who's in Florida, who's going to be affected by any given hurricane that comes through. And that way I can, I have all the social media platforms to connect with them and be able to check in and see how they're doing. So I kind of did that. I added some and then realized that Florida isn't the only place that has natural disasters or disasters of any kind where people need to check in on each other. So kind of expanded that to open it up to everyone. And rather than me adding a bunch of people to the site, which I didn't want to do, I wanted people to add themselves to the site. I want it to be opt-in. I want it to be somewhere that they want to come join and be part of that directory. So I spruced it up, made it look nice. I'm a designer at heart, designer first, so I took the time to make it, look nice and trustworthy and somewhere where people will want to come add their information to the site and kind of opened it up for everyone. So um, yeah, that's where that came from. I think it's been up for, I don't know, 7 or 8 months now, where people could add themselves to the site and see who's in the area around them. And I've been trying to furiously build in feature after feature to try and help with that discovery, helping people see where they are. I've had a few people that were like, "Oh, I'm going to be in, a different city. I'm going to be in Chicago next week. Is there anyone around?" I'm like, well, why don't I build in a way for people to see who's in Chicago? It doesn't have to be where they live. It could be where they're traveling, and see what WordPress folks are around and who they can reach out to. So just been trying to build it up from there.
I think it's really cool. I love putting my pin on the map and seeing, like, staking my little tiny claim of Hilton, New York, on the WP World map is super cool. I'm interested. I mean, you all know I do a lot of side projects too, and so I'm interested in what makes people think about these really cool things that come up with. So what, other than, like, hurricanes and that kind of thing, um, how did you feel a need to create something like the WP World outside of the WordPress org website, where we have profiles and things there too? And then further, what do you think that some external projects like this, and my project W Speakers, can add to the community that the open source project can't? So there's a need outside of the open source project because we can do things that they're limited to. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And so when thinking about like what .org does and what .org has with presser with profiles, like I call them presser profiles on the WP World, but .org profiles for those that have signed up for a WordPress.org account. Um, it does what it does really well, and the WP World is not a replacement for .org and .org profiles. In fact, one of the things that feeds the information at the WP World is the .org content, right? So without that content, the WP World starts off a lot more blank, So you sign up for the WP World, you put in your .org profile username, and the site will go off and find your badges and the photos that you've uploaded to the directory, and the plugins that you've developed, the themes that you've developed. It pulls all that information from .org, and that's one of the beautiful things about WordPress and the WordPress REST API, is that .org has, allowed that to be open and be able to find that information just from having your .org username. And so the WP World takes what .org has done and kind of adds to it, and leaves some things to .org, right? .org has like your activity stream, what you've done in the community there. We don't need to pull that into the WP World. If you want to see that, that's at your .org profile. So I'm not trying to replace .org profiles. It's more of a complement to .org profiles. And so I just thought that there were some opportunities to do more in terms of connecting the folks in the community with like events and with businesses in a way that .org maybe can't do that easily. And so for instance, the WordPress, the .org project just released WordPress events like a couple of days ago or something, which seems like, oh no, you're stepping on the toes of the event stuff that's happening inside the WP World, but it's really not. It's a different site with a different purpose. And again, I think that there's opportunity for the WP World to work with the WordPress event site to complement each other, where the WordPress event site is totally future focused. So like all the events that you see on there are from now and into the future. There's no past events there. There's not information about past events there. And then there's not that connection to like to 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 the people that are being represented there. It shows a number of how many people are involved in the community at those events and stuff, which is all fantastic. But it doesn't really allow you to connect like, oh, I've been to that event, so I want that to show up somewhere, and I
Mhm.
want to track which events I've been to. So in that way, the WP World serves kind of a different purpose than some of the
Mhm.
stuff that .org has going on. And
You use
then,
the perfect word for it, the word complement, right? So it complements it. So it's
mhm,
not in addition, it's not in place of or in lieu of, it's in addition to. So it makes it a little more robust to be able to be in both places. And you have real names as opposed to sometimes you can't find people on .org because they've used some interesting handle instead.
yeah, that's true. That's very true. Yeah, I've noticed some of those, and that makes sense. I think back to like a lot of those are the ones that have been around for a really long time too, right? When we started with like MySpace and some of the old stuff, we picked like interesting handles because they were interesting and they were fun, and we were younger. And mine was, I think, not in my .org, but one of my old handles for things was like Vertigo Dragon. And if I continued with that, I'd be like, okay, that doesn't mean Marcus in any way whatsoever. So
Right.
um it just depends on how old some of the accounts are and stuff. I think one of the other things that separates what the WP World and WP speakers and those kind of projects can do is really the opportunities that we have to be able to collaborate with brands the way that we want to.
Mhm.
.org doesn't really have that flexibility to, singularly focus on collaborating with different brands and their projects and stuff. And we kind of have that opportunity to do that with each other and with other sites. Working with folks like WP Speakers, WP Career Pages, but also like Post Status and the WP Minute and some of those other brands that have come in and said, here's where we can kind of grow these communities together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's incredible to hear kind of the backstory of how you created this and the need and how it was born and everything. It's there's a lot of different instances where this will be really helpful and beneficial to the community for sure. What else is on the roadmap for WP World? What else, what's your vision going forward? And I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah. So what I really want, right? What the goal of the site is to really be a resource for all things WordPress people, events, and businesses. Those are kind of the three, and there's little subcategories of those as well, right? So like events also then has organizers and volunteers and sponsors and that kind of thing. But really, those are kind of the three major groupings. So anytime I think about adding something to the site, and it's so easy to just add. So I try to think through some of those things before they get added. Anytime I add something to the site, I want it to be in service of providing some kind of benefit, some kind of value to one, at least, if not more, of those groups. And so, um, a couple of things that even have released like this week, I had started building in a rating system. This is based somewhat on a post that Marika um, posted in Post Status about having kind of more transparency in events, and um, she coined it as like a glass door for events, where you can kind of see, how people felt about the event, where people paid to speak at those events, how hard was it for them to get to the events, and that kind of stuff. And that information doesn't really exist anywhere. The events themselves have their own pages, and there's some information about, getting to the events and where the event venues are and recommended hotels and that kind of stuff. But there really isn't as much. It's not that it's not transparent, it's just that it's not widely available. And so, if you ask an organizer, they'd, I'm sure, be happy to tell you it's all, you know, information that they're willing to share, um, but it's just not out there. And so, especially for folks that are kind of new to WordPress, new to events, and, maybe not new to events. Maybe they've been around the event space for a while, but they're new to WordPress and they want to know what the difference is between kind of WordPress events and other industry events. And so just taking on some of those things inside the site where I already have every WordCamp that's ever happened in the site. Now it's just a matter of adding kind of that information. And so I've been working on it for a couple of weeks. I released it unofficially earlier this week as the rating system for events. And so anybody who's signed up for the WP World can go in now and go rate any of the events that they've been to. There's a number of things that you can rate in there, from your overall experience to the venue to the food to session attendance and all that stuff, and you rate it as an attendee, a sponsor, or a speaker. And so you kind of get that qualified perspective when you come in and say, I'd really like to speak at this camp in Germany. Let me go check out last year's camp in Germany and see the speaker ratings. And now I see that, it was amazing, 5 stars for everything. I definitely want to go apply to speak there. And so again, like, that incentivizes the sponsors and the organizers and all of that to have a great event, because you want people to rate it well. And then it also gives folks that are looking to speak or sponsor or whatever the ability to say, I'm all in, or I'm going to be a little more cautious on this, and just kind of provide some information that isn't currently there. And then other things on the roadmap kind of follow suit, right? It's just adding more resources for really organizers and volunteers and sponsors have some information. It's people who are interested in doing those things, right? If I want to be an organizer, what are the things that I need to know about being an organizer in general, or for any given camp? What is it that I need to know about being a volunteer? If I'm a sponsor, like, one of the things that I've talked with a couple of other sponsors about, from like Jetpack and Barn 2, we go to these events. It's part of what I do at GoDaddy is, sponsorship, being there representing the brand. We go to these events, we kind of have an idea maybe of how many people are supposed to be there, based on some ticket sales and some past history information. But, like, how much swag do we need to bring? What are the kind of the venue limitations, that I've run into? Maybe we've been at this venue for 3 years and I have some notes, here's what I've run into for this venue, and here's how to get around that, or, here's the solution for that. Like, we want to be able to share that information and help each other out. And so kind of building up a resource library, if you will, for specifically for events, and helping out organizers, volunteers, speakers, sponsors, anyone who wants to do one of those things. Just give them the information that they need to be able to do that well.
Love that. Ability to collaborate and help each other is incredible. That's amazing.
It's definitely one of those unique things about the WordPress space, right?
Mhm.
Again, I work at GoDaddy. There are lots of hosting companies that come to all of these events, and for us to be able to be in the room together and have friendly conversations and kind of talk through what it is that we do for our companies. And a lot of times there are even collaboration opportunities there. But just, it's an interesting piece of the WordPress community, the WordPress ecosystem, is just how we can get together and just, work collaboratively, work in a friendly manner, rather than, be those cutthroat competitors at any of those events.
Yeah. So on that note, any plans to take on partnerships or grow in any other ways, or?
So for the WP World, my main goal, and I foresee this being the case forever, is that I want the site to be free for the WordPress community, for pressers, for people that sign up. They have their presser profile. I want that to be free, and I want all of the information that they have access to be free forever. So, um, what that means is that I lean on sponsorships for the site, and I lean on businesses that want to add themselves to the directory to kind of support the running of the site, the time for building out additional features and stuff. And so, in that sense, again, I don't want anything to be behind a paywall. All of those resources and stuff that I was just sharing that I would like to build into the site, I want even at that point, if you go to the site and you're not logged in, I want that information to be available to you. There are things that you can do if you log in, like actually rate the events. I don't want that to necessarily be totally open. I want that to be somewhat qualified to people who are created an account and have a login. But then the rating information is there whether you're logged in or not. And so I want all of that to be, completely available to everyone at all times. And so to make that happen is just a matter of relying on just kind of the support from the community and businesses. And I've, been thankful and blessed by the relationships that I've formed in the last couple of years with companies that I have amazing sponsors on the site already. They're in the footer of every page, and they have their own sponsor page, and there's some really amazing sponsors, and I'm really appreciative to all of those. Um, I am full on those currently, but if somebody is looking to sponsor the newsletter that just started, I am taking a few sponsorships there, and thank you to Michelle and WP Career Pages for already sponsoring the looking for work section of the newsletter. I super appreciate that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that you haven't mentioned yet too, is that you let people toggle on and off whether or not they're looking for work. So that's another way that people can be found, and companies can look for qualified people who might be looking for work. And I think that's great. I also like, and I saw this on X. I hate calling it X. I saw it on
Me
X
too.
this week that that you pull in the gravatar, right? So everybody knows gravatar is a part of WordPress. You have a user somewhere and it pulls your gravatar image in, and you can go to gravatar. You can change your images based on email addresses, etc. But you've also given people the opportunity to replace the gravatar with a different image if they choose to. And I think that's brilliant. It makes it a lot easier for people to be displayed the way they want and still let that gravatar live in other places. So thank you for that. Also, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I'm starting to lose track of the number of features a little bit, but yeah, that one, yeah. So it kind of just it looks at things in order of, did you add a word.org account? If you did, I'll pull the photo from there. If you didn't, do you have an email address? If you gave me an email address, then I'll look up the gravatar and I'll pull it from there. And then if you uploaded something because you want something completely different for your site, which I did, like I have the same photo across every social platform everywhere, but I wanted this one to be different. And so I uploaded a different one for this, and that one then overrides any of the other options. And so, yeah, I give you a chance. And that's also just speaking a little bit of roadmap. I do want and plan to do some more kind of customization things like that. Not to the extent of MySpace where you have twinkly background stars and everyone's putting in their own
Who are my
CSS.
top 8 followers?
Who are my top 8 followers? No, not to that. But like I've had some people who have said, I'm marked as a developer on these plugins because of work that I've done with the plugins in the past, but I'm not really a developer. I don't want to look like I'm a developer. Can I not show those plugins? I'm like, well, currently, no, that's not an option, but I'd like to give you the option to say, I have this information here, but I don't necessarily want to show it. And, I have some opportunities to do that in a number of places. Of course, if you don't want to show your, you know, I don't know, if you don't want to show your LinkedIn account, then don't put the URL to your LinkedIn in there. But in some cases, the information is already in there, and maybe it's pulled from .org, or you want the information in there because it feeds something else, but you don't necessarily want it to show in your presser profile. Just giving people some of those opportunities as well. So some level of customization is on the roadmap, although I don't envision it being, you know, changing out background images and stuff like that.
One of the things that people have asked me about with the side projects that I have is they've said they really wished that instead of doing my own thing, I had suggested it be included in WordPress.org. And my response to that was, it takes forever, number one, to get anything done in such a big organization, relying on volunteers. And number two, it's great to be able to give ideas and have those be, considered. But somebody like me or you can spin up something like literally within a week. Like WP career page or WP career pages went up in a day. WP speakers, I started it on Monday, soft launched it on Wednesday, and had over 100 people already in it by Friday. That can't happen within an organization that is open source, people have to, collaborate and that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on what, having these things additional to WordPress.org? I know we talked about a little bit, but can you talk about how, like, the freedom to be able to create that? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, and not just the freedom to create it, but the freedom to kind of change directions as makes sense for the community. I think you have, and I know this from being in a part of a large company as well, right? It's a big ship to steer, and so when you want to make changes or things, make sense to make different based on community feedback and stuff, it's a slow shift from one direction to another, as opposed to when you have kind of projects like these where, yeah, I'm the team, I'm the person designing, developing, posting on social media, all of the stuff. And so if I'm getting feedback from the community that, hey, this could be better, this could be more accessible, this could be written more friendly or whatever, I don't have to put in a work order and make sure that it gets approved and make sure that it's on brand and all that. Like, I'm the brand. If I say it, it's on brand. So I have the freedom to kind of shift gears in a different direction. Maybe something that I've been working on feels like it'd be great to have, but there's this other piece over here that now feels like it would be more beneficial to, I don't know, organizers of WordCamps. Like, I can kind of set this thing aside and work on that thing for organizers for WordCamps, and not worry about, all the businessy technical things that go behind the scenes of like a large corporation, of how you have to kind of shift gears more slowly. So I think it's not just the freedom of being able to build something, although I do appreciate that. And we have talked many times about the number of side projects that both of us have. Somewhat of an addiction to building a thing that we think might be helpful to people and then putting it out there. But then again, the freedom to kind of shift and change that to be the most beneficial thing that you can build.
Absolutely. So what else haven't we talked about that maybe you want to bring up? What else is going on with the project, or any future projects, anything you'd like to share that we didn't ask you about today?
Yeah, I like I said, I'm losing track a little bit of the number of the different features and stuff. I would love for people to just kind of log in and look around to the WP world. There's a bunch of stuff going on in there. The ratings is a piece of it. I think that the WordCamp tracking in there, where you can kind of log and track the WordCamps that you've been to, is one of my favorites, to be able to see, what events people have gone to, how far they've traveled from, their hometowns to places. Like, I know a lot of folks that have gone to WordCamp Asia, from the US and from Europe, and just love seeing where people are headed, and um, just giving a sense of how many events people have been able to go to in person now that they exist again. Um, and then, yeah, just kind of tinker with the things that are available to you for, like, marking yourself open to work, looking for work. There are a few social media accounts that I think are there on the like main sign up form, but then once you're in, you can add other things like your Mastodon handle and stuff. And so there's more under the hood after you've created an account that you can go tinker with. So just want people to go check that out. And then the one thing that I did prepare in answer to this question is that there were a lot of people who signed up for the site before I had user accounts. This was kind of I don't know, a sort of an oopsie, not from a technical standpoint, but from a marketing standpoint, to not collect email addresses and have user accounts from the very beginning. I very intentionally in the beginning wanted to not collect any information that wasn't going to be shown on the front end of the site. And emails are the only piece of information like that. I do collect emails now to create user accounts, and those emails aren't shown, so don't worry if you signed
I
up, your
was
email's
I was
not
one of those
exposed to
people, but
everyone.
I was one of those people. I've claimed my profile since then. I do have another
Yeah, if
question.
people would please come claim the profiles that are unclaimed so that you can have, all of the
All the
goodness of
access.
rating events and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a question that just popped in my head. So it wasn't one that we had prepared you for, but I know some people who are either digital nomads or because of safety and security reasons don't want to put a pin on the map. Is there a
Mhm.
possibility that they could say, I'm a digital nomad, but I still want to be part of this project?
There currently isn't, although you're welcome to log in and change where you are at any time, however often you'd like. So I would definitely encourage people, if they're moving around on a daily basis, don't take the time to update your location on the WP World on a daily basis. It's not that important. But, if you live in one place for a couple of months and then you go somewhere else for a couple of months, feel free to update. That is one of the things that, again, when I started and there weren't user accounts, I had to have a form for people to request
Mm-hmm.
updates to their profile, and then I would manually make the updates to their profile.
Mm.
Now that there are user accounts, people can update their location however they'd like. And then when it comes to the privacy aspect of it, and I 100% understand, um, really the level of detail for where you live should not be any more specific than the city level that you live in. So don't put your home address. I look through the site. I clear out home addresses when I see them. You wouldn't believe how many people put their home address in when they're signing up for the first time, and I go in and I clear it out because we don't want home addresses.
No,
We want to know what city you're in. We want to know, other folks in the same city. We don't need to know other
sure.
folks on the same street. So
And you
shouldn't
could
be any
even,
any more detailed than that. But are if you don't want that, right, you could put in Florida or you. I mean, that would put your pin on the map, probably not necessarily where you are, and it might be a little bit more difficult to see exactly who's
Mhm.
near you specifically. Um, but you're certainly welcome to do that.
And you can still participate, which is and
Yep.
work where you've been and all of those things. So I'm glad that there's the ability to do that. So if, like, for example, if I live in a small town, I could put Rochester, New York, even though I'm not in the city proper, for example, which makes perfect
Yep.
sense.
I
Mm.
I do the same. I don't live in Orlando. I live in one of
Okay.
the suburbs on the north side of Orlando. So it's always, depending on the situation, do I tell people I live in Winter Springs or do I tell people I live in Orlando? Nobody has any idea where Winter Springs is. Unless
It,
they live
it
in this
de-
area, then they'll
yeah.
know where Winter Springs is. But in general, I just
It
tell people
depends
I
if
live
they're
in
sending me
Orlando.
swag or not. If they're gonna send me
Yeah.
swag, they should know my hometown, right?
That's right.
Oh, so tell us, how do people find the WP World? How do they find you? What are all of the location, like the online location details to follow up?
Yeah, most of it's going to be over on X. You're going to make me say it. Twitter. It's on Twitter.
I know. It'll always be
um,
Twitter in my heart.
yes,
No, it
same.
will.
It's the WP World has its own handle, TWP World, or you can find me at Marcus Burnette on Twitter as well. And a lot of obviously the stuff that I'm sharing it's a mix of the WP World stuff, WordPress
Yeah.
event stuff in general, WordPress community things. And then the site is the WP.world.
All of the links that you've given us will be in the show notes, as well as a transcript of today's episode too. Travis, any final thoughts from you today? Any last questions? Any ideas? Throw them out there.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Marcus. This is an incredible project that you've been working on. It's great for the community. I love I just love what you're doing. I love how it's bringing people together. So, no additional questions for me, but I just want to say thank you. And I can't wait to see where you take this and how it continues to help those in the WordPress community. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Any
And I will share one of the things that you can do when you sign up for an account is leave feature requests for the site. And although
Mhm.
I have a nice long list of things that I want to add to the site, I'd love to hear what other people would like. So either there or on Twitter, let me know if there are things that you'd love to see on the site. And yeah, I'll most likely add it to the roadmap at some point.
I love that. Any final thoughts from you, Marcus?
Nope, that's it. Come sign up, find out who's in your area. One of the things I didn't touch on too much was that this is really meant at the beginning at least to have folks meet up in person. So sign up so you can see who's in your local area. find a coffee shop to go hang out in person with people, see if there are enough people for a meetup or a WordCamp. I really want to see people meeting up with each other in person. So
I love the site for the community building aspect of it. And I just want to, give you all the shout outs and all the props and full gratitude for building something that really does help build our community for sure. And also, thank you for being here today and sharing this project with us. We'll have it out on our website soon. People will be able to follow up with you, follow up on getting their pin on the map and their profile on the site. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
thank you.
Yeah, and we'll see everybody else on the next episode of WP Constellations. WP Constellations is a production of Stellar WP, home of the events calendar, LearnDash, Give WP, Cadence, Iconic, Solid WP, Orderable, and Restrict Content Pro. Learn more about the Stellarverse at stellarwp.com.